Welcome everybody to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio. One more time, I'm your host Roger Belt, and I have Miss Haunted Salem with me tonight. We're going to talk about urban legends and the truths behind those. And I've been waiting to do this one because I love urban legends. Anyway, I have an idea. Run this by you real quick. Um, how about we trade off? You read one and we'll talk about it, and then I'll read one, we'll talk about it. We'll kind of switch off, and that way one of us ain't having to do, all the reading and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. I just got to get my computer up here. It's not responding at the moment.
Trust me, been there.
So I'm going to restart it real quick.
Just like my microphone decided not to work, and somehow or another the setting got changed, and I don't know how in the world that happened because I didn't do it. Anywho, I got to, do that. Okay. All our lovely people here in the chat room. We are getting ready to roll momentarily. She had to do a restart real quick,
Yeah, real quick.
but we're gonna be. I tell you what, since you're having to do that, I'll go ahead and do the first one. That way, we're not
Yep,
waiting for.
absolutely.
Okay, so you guys, just so you know, this is going to be up here in front of you for a minute. But okay, I got to get back to where I was because I was reading way down here. Um, the first one we're going to talk about is dead bodies under the mattress. This urban legend
Nice.
involves, pardon?
Nothing, go ahead.
This urban legend involves someone checking into a hotel room and noticing that something just smells rotten. Eventually, they realize it's coming from under the bed. They move the mattress to find a dead body. This legend has been around for a long time and even featured in the movie Four Rooms. You would think that this scenario would be unlikely. Truth behind this legend is it actually happened in 1982 when some auto thieves killed an accomplice and left him under the bed of their hotel room in New Jersey. 4 days later, someone discovered the corpse, but the room had been rented 3 different times prior to that. In 1987, a drug user overdosed on and his high friend stuffed him under the mattress and ran away. 3 days later, a family reported a nasty odor in their room, prompting the hotel staff to discover the body. In 1988, in New York, a murderer was clever enough to actually put the body inside the box spring instead of just under the mattress. Regardless, the smell still gave away the body's hiding place a couple of days later. Apparently, hotel workers often shrug off these types of odors until someone complains. So the next time you stay at a hotel in a hotel room and smell something funny, make sure you check under your bed. I love that.
Uh, that's crazy, though, but it happens.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't think, that somebody would actually be that dumb to think that nobody wouldn't find a body stuffed under a mattress.
Well,
You
sooner
know,
or later.
yeah, I mean, well, they probably figured that it wouldn't smell before they had enough time to get a long ways off, and that's probably
Exactly.
true. But kind of makes you want to think twice about renting a motel or hotel room, don't it?
Yes, it does.
Think I'd sleep with a blanket in my car. Anyway, that was the first one that we have on the list, and we have many, so never fear. um, Dead bodies under the mattress. Don't go rent a hotel room unless you make sure that you have the bellhop before you give him his tip. Goes in there and checks under the mattress for you.
That's if you smell something funny, I'd look before, anything.
Yeah. Well, and see, the thing about it is sometimes people will leave food on plates and stuff in there, and they might just slide it under the bed. Well, the cleaning lady may not think to look under there. So
True.
you might have rotten food under there that's stinking, and if you read this or heard this, first thought that's going to run through your head is there's a body under my mattress. So anyway, very interesting. Okay, on to the next.
I'm almost up, so you can keep going.
Okay, we'll go ahead to the next one. Is Wizard of Oz, Munchkin Suicide. Now, this urban legend is about when Dorothy, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man walked down the yellow brick road. You can see a mysterious figure dangling from a rope in the background. For the longest time, everyone believes it to be a munchkin that hanged himself. The director, stagehands, and actors were completely unaware of it. The actual truth behind this legend is what is actually moving behind stage is a large exotic bird on loan from a Los Angeles zoo. The urban legend started when The Wizard of Oz was released on VHS in 1989. It wasn't until over the decades until the most recent Blu-ray edition of the American classic reveals the myth as a false.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Hanging munchkins, exotic birds. I don't know, but if I was gonna believe in a legend, I think I'd rather believe in the hanging munchkin. It sounds creepier. You know what I mean? That's just me, though.
Yeah.
I'm one of these people that likes the creepy, bizarre, and strange. So, yeah, the hanging munchkin just sounds so much better. I mean, anybody can look at an exotic bird, and you ain't gonna be like, "Oh my God, it's an exotic bird." No, I want
Yeah,
the
they think it was
hanging.
Munchkin. They thought it was
Yeah,
a Munchkin that hanged himself,
I
so.
want the hanging munchkin. Okay. So if you're still waiting, I will go to the next
Oh,
one.
I actually got it up.
Oh,
The
cool.
next legend, yeah, is Three Men and a Baby Ghost. This urban legend is when the movie Three Men and a Baby was released in 1990. An hour into the movie, when Jack Cole, played by Ted Danson, and his mother, they were walking through Jack's house.
Okay,
Well,
you're garbling up there. You need to get closer to your mic.
okay. Well, in the background, you can see a mysterious figure behind the curtains of one of the windows. It is believed that this figure was the ghost of a boy who used to live in the house when the movie was shot. The most common myth is that the boy committed suicide with a shotgun, which is why the house was vacant for the movie shoot. Well, the truth behind this legend is that the mysterious figure behind the curtain is actually a cardboard cutout of Danson's character wearing a top hat and tails. It was used as a prop for a storyline that was eventually cut out of the movie. And the house isn't a real house, but a set on a stage in Toronto. So that was that legend.
Okay, now if you saw in personal, well, if you're any of the actors or the stagehands, you're going to know it's a set. But
When you watch the movie, I guess it looks like a ghost of a boy.
yeah, and I'm saying it would look like a real house to you if you were watching the movie, and you would see the shadow ghost or whatever of the boy behind the curtain. You would automatically assume, hey, there's something there that don't belong. That's a shadow figure. That's a kid. That's a whatever. So it would creep you out. Yeah, I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Um, Shame it turned out to be a cardboard cutout.
Yeah. But
Okay,
that's what urban legends are.
that's true. That is true. And some are false and some are not. And some of the ones that you would think that are false actually turn out to be true, and they are creepy. Let's get on with the next one. We have the Blair Witch Project. Was a real documentary. This urban legend is that footage from three student filmmakers who went missing while making a documentary about the Blair Witch Project. Well, supposedly this footage was found 1 year later after they disappeared, and this is considered a real documentary. The truth behind this legend is that the film's distributor, Artesian Entertainment, played along with this legend and centered all the film's promotional materials with the idea that it is an actual documentary rather than a fictional film. This movie grossed $248.6 million worldwide against a $60,000 production budget. The truth of this urban legend is that it is a fictional film created from the minds of the film writers and distributors, the three students who were actually actors, and their names are Heather Donahue, Michael Williams, and Joshua Leonard.
Regardless if it's fake or not fake, I still wouldn't walk around the woods at all.
I gotta tell you, that movie, to me, and I did watch it. God forgive me, I watched it. That movie to me was one of the biggest flops to me
Yeah.
that I ever seen in my life. It didn't show anything scary. It just showed them making scary faces and cussing like a sailor.
Well, same thing with Paranormal Activity. It's the same thing.
Yeah, Paranormal Activity, I think it was the first one. There was only one scene in the whole movie that was a little bit scary, and that's when the woman got yanked down the stairs.
Yeah, well, they have, what, 7 of them now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And everyone's the same old thing,
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
much. So, urban legends about stuff like that. It was a fictional movie. It really did suck. I'm sorry. But I got to say, it really did suck. And the second one, did you see the second one?
I don't know. Yeah, I did see the second one. Yeah.
Okay, that one had a little bit more of a scare tactic in it. When the guy in the house turns around and he's like, anyway, that one had a little bit of actual horror in it compared to the other one, which I didn't see anything. Like I said, except them making faces like they were scared and cussing like a dog, like a sailor, They gave the F word all new meaning. But anyway, okay. So, that was... so, now we have the legend of the dog boy. So, tell us about the dog boy from Arkansas.
The dog boy, well, according to this legend, it's based around a little boy who was ruthlessly tortured dogs and cats and would believe to have paranormal powers. While this legend is mostly true, it was inspired by General Floyd Bettis, a young man who actually had an addition put onto his family home so he could store animals to torture. He was also a tyrant towards his parents. One source said that he kept the animals virtually imprisoned in an upstairs part of the house and would only feed them when he wanted to.
Okay, you're garbling up really bad.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was no proof that he had paranormal powers, and he was 6'4" and weighed 300 pounds. But it's a sad legend because of torturing the animals. I don't like that or anything like that.
In fact, I'd probably wind up getting killed trying to save some animal from some idiot.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I don't go for that at all.
Me either.
That's the sad thing about some legends also. There's some really bad stuff in them, and it's actually true. So now we have the public pool corpse. In this urban legend, a few kids sneaked into a public pool for a swim and saw something floating in the water. The truth behind this legend is that it happened in Fall River, Massachusetts. Her name was Marie Joseph, and she was 26 years old. Marie had been swimming in a crowded and clouded pool when she went under and never came back up. Days passed before her body returned to the top of the water. That I could see because when a person drowns, they don't come back up right away.
Not for a couple days anyway.
So I could see something like that happen. Wouldn't that freak you out? Especially if you snuck into a pool and you were swimming and it just popped up all of a sudden,
Oh, yeah, like, absolutely.
Well, let's put it this way. There'd be floaters all over that pool.
Floaters. Oh, that's cute.
I'm just saying, it'd be like the guy from Caddyshack when he grabs
I love that
in the water. Only I don't think nobody would want to take a bite out of one of them. But anyway, that, like I said, that is believable. I mean, I can see where that would be true because a body is weighted down once their lungs fill up with water, so they kind of lay on the bottom, I guess.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to swim in a pool that's cloudy. You know what I mean?
Right, that would make you say, well, what the heck is in this water,
Yeah.
Why would you want to be swimming in that water in the first place? Okay, moving right along, you get to tell us about the human fat vampire.
Yep. Well, the human fat vampire, it's a Peruvian urban legend that has been shared now for about 400 years. According to the legend, vampires in Peru would hunt down and then feed from the fat of tourists, leaving bodies behind. Well, the real story is that the vampires were actually real traffickers who would hunt down people for their fat and sell it on the black market. The Peruvian police have investigated the story for years, and in 2009 it was announced that the criminal gang associated with trafficking of human fat had finally been broken up. So the black market, definitely, a lot is sold on the black market. I guess you can get anything you want.
Why would anybody want human fat?
Well, I know somebody, one of the serial killers, would turn people's human fat into soap.
Okay.
So I guess you can do stuff with it.
Now, I know they used to hunt whales for the blubber, and they used it for like lamp oil and all kind of stuff like that. Yeah. But I've never heard of anybody using human fat for anything like that.
Well, I couldn't even imagine what the fat looks like.
Well, now, just saying, this is words from the little fat guy here. If they want to come and take some of my fat, so be it. Come take some of it. I need to get rid of a few pounds of it. But,
I know, right?
Anyway.
I hear that.
Okay. Next we have the axe welding bunny man. This urban legend is that in Washington, D.C., that there is a man in a white bunny suit wandering the countryside welding an axe. The truth of this legend is that this is all based on actual events in the late evening of October 19th, 1970. Air Force Cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée were sitting on their car on a dark road when suddenly a man in a white bunny suit appeared from the woods, shouting, "You're on private property, and I have your tag number." The bunny man then hurled an axe through the window of the car. No one was injured, but the couple quickly fled the scene. Less than 2 weeks later, the bunny man was spotted standing on the front porch of an unoccupied house. When a security guard approached him, the bunny man took his axe and started hacking at one of the porch beams, shouting, "All you people trespass around here. If you do not get out of here, I'm going to burst you on the head." The guard returned to his car to get his gun, but then saw the bunny man running off into the woods. As far as anyone knows he is still out there. Now, I don't care if he's got an axe or not. If a grown man in a bunny suit jumps out in front of me out of the woods, I'm gonna shit myself. I'm sorry. You
Yeah,
know what?
especially yeah, absolutely.
What the hell? Because he's got to be a Looney Tune. You know, if he's gonna jump out of the woods in a white bunny suit, axe or no axe, this guy ain't altogether right in the head.
Well, he's never been caught either.
So there's still a man in a white bunny suit running around in. How long ago was that?
I think
1970?
1970.
Okay, I wonder
Yeah,
how
and
old
plus they have Funny Man Fringe.
you got to wonder how old he was then. Because if
Yeah,
he's still
true.
out there running around in a bunny suit now, imagine he's doing it with a cane and he's kind of hobbling a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, just saying. But you know, I can you see him hobbling out on his cane? You're on private property there, Sonny. Let me get my axe here. I'm gonna bop you on the head. Okay, so that was the that was the bunny man. Okay,
Yeah.
bunny man's funny. Okay, and you're gonna tell us about Charlie No Face or the Green Man. And I read this
Yep.
story actually. It's a sad story.
It is a sad story. The legend is about a man in western Pennsylvania who, according to the legend, was a green glowing supernatural being that wandered the back country roads at night. Well, the truth behind this legend is it is based off a real person named Raymond Robinson. He was injured during an electrical accident when he was young. He lost both eyes, nose, an ear, plus one arm. His skin was badly burned, which gave it a green hue. And he enjoyed walking around at night because it was the only time he could get out without causing mass hysteria.
Now I read this story, like I said,
Yeah.
and he actually had a lot of people that would uh, actually walk with him, talk to him. Uh, you know, some people passing by in vehicles would would speak to him and stuff, and they weren't afraid of him. And you know, um, from what
He's
I
just
understand,
a figure.
he actually lived a pretty long life. You know, like that, and
Yeah.
it's just a sad story because the way I understand it, him and some kids, he climbed up a pole or something on a bed or something, and he got into the electrical wires or something, and that's it. You know, that's what messed him up like that.
He's lucky he
Uh,
wasn't dead.
and I'm saying, you know, the amount of voltage that was running through there. I mean, it's just a miracle that it didn't kill him instantly.
Exactly.
Now, current, as I understand it, and I have experienced 110 voltage, it will hold on to you. And
Okay.
I mean, you know, where a 220 will knock you back, a 110 will hold on to you and just rush through your body. And that happened to me when I was a kid. I know that's a fact. Uh,
Wow.
I had made some homemade electric worm diggers that had wooden handles that you stick in the ground that would shock the worms and make them come up. And I was trying to stick them in the ground, and my hand slid off down onto the actual metal,
Oh
and
wow.
I like to not got loose from that thing. And when I finally did, it's like it seemed like forever that it was just coursing through my body.
That's crazy.
And it's probably why I'm half brain dead now. But anyway, yeah, that's a fact that it does that. But now the voltage that would have had to been going through the wires that he got involved in would have been like, oh God, I couldn't even
High voltage.
imagine.
I mean, I don't know what high voltage runs.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been like super high voltage, you know, millions of kilowatts probably. I know that some of the machines they use in these factories, they're like 450,000 watts and shit. and stuff like that. And that's just one machine that's being powered by that. Can you imagine what's going through your actual lines that are going from pole to pole?
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway, that's the Green Man, and like I said, very very fascinating story. Actually, a really sad story. Uh, we're going to talk about frozen solid and becoming living statues.
Yep. Well, this is
This
a centuries-old legend. People being frozen solid and becoming living statues. Well, the truth behind this legend is in 1981 in North Dakota, a young woman by the name of Jean Hillard. She was found frozen solid after being trapped in 22 below freezing temperatures. According to her doctor, George Sutter, he said when she arrived at the Foston Hospital in Minnesota, her skin was too hard to pierce with the needle, her temperature was too low to register on a thermometer, and her face was frozen and her eyes were solid. She didn't respond to light, and he didn't understand why she was still alive. So,
excuse me. Can you imagine somebody still being alive, frozen solid?
yeah, well, it obviously can happen.
Well,
You can't move, you're solid, you're just solid, you're just frozen solid, but your heart's beating, you know? And you probably can see.
you would think that the heart would be frozen too. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you would think.
And the brain.
Yep.
So if the eyes were frozen solid, the brain was probably frozen too. How could somebody be alive if their brain was frozen and because your brain is what sends all the messages to your heart and everything else.
So it couldn't have been frozen.
Well, obviously either that or he just thought she was alive. I mean, and it doesn't say that they thought her out and she came back or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's one for the books right there. Uh,
Yep.
okay. Psychopath plastic surgeon. This legend is about a plastic surgeon who hacks up all his patients and tricks and tries to get away with it. Well, this legend is true. His name was Glenn Tucker. One woman came to get her breast implants and somehow ended up with square breasts. As the complaints and lawsuits rolled in, supposedly Tucker drowned, but actually he faked his own death and fled to Florida. It wasn't until years later that a TV producer tracked down Tucker and interviewed him. Tucker said, "If I get driven too far into a corner, if it got to the point where life was no longer worth living, then I would not want to go alone." Several years later, Tucker killed his wife, his cat, and then himself with his gun.
Happens all the time. Hackers.
Don't you want a facelift?
Certain hackers.
Don't you want to get
What
a
was
face? Don't you want to get a facelift or something?
No.
Uh,
I've had a lot of surgeries. I'm all set with surgery.
I'm just saying. Well, how in the world did he manage to give a woman square breasts? Now I gotta ask.
The way he.
Implants. I wouldn't assume were square. I would figure they would be like round blobs of jelly or gel type stuff or something.
Yeah, basically, but you never know. I mean.
Or did he deliberately put some kind of square objects? Why would he do that? I don't know. That's just a little bit on the weird side.
It
Now,
happens all the time, though. Hackers.
yeah, but that's just weird. I mean, I don't see how that could have happened, but nevertheless, stranger things have happened. Okay, let's see. Where are we here? Shadow people.
Yeah. Well, the shadow people legend has been around for thousands of years. According to the legend, people have sworn that when they woke up in the middle of the night, there was a shadowy figure looking down at them or staring at them from across the room. Well, the story is part true. In Japan, a man who lived alone would return home and see that things would be moved around and food was stolen. So he decided to set up a video camera, and he caught footage of a woman who had taken up residence inside his home. He identified the woman, 58-year-old Tasuka Horikawa, a homeless woman who was living out of his sights in closets and cupboards. So basically, it might not be a shadow of people, but it's creepy to know that someone could be living with you and you might not know it. So someone was living in cupboards and closets coming out while he was sleeping.
I read a similar story of a person who had a big house. And, I think a lot of this house he never even went into because why should he? He didn't need all that room.
Exactly.
And had somebody that was living there, staying out of sight, going in, eating the food at night or when they went to bed or whatever, and just living there in their house. That would be creepy.
It can happen. Yeah, it definitely happen.
The one story I read about the people that hired a babysitter, they went out and they, the babysitter put the kid to bed, come downstairs, went into the dining room or den or whatever to watch TV, and was creeped out by a clown statue that was standing off.
Oh, yeah, the clown statue. Yep.
Yeah, and turns out that it was not a statue. And when she called the guy complaining about the statue and wanting to cover it up, he said, "Get the kid and get out of the house. We don't have a clown statue."
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Woo. Now that would be creepy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, next on our list we have Weekend at Bernie's, and I like this one. Okay, I'm sure a lot of you out there have seen the movie Weekend at Bernie's, where, they drug poor old Bernie around on the boat and everywhere, and he was dead. The legend being, did two people tie up a dead body and walk around with him around town? Well, the truth behind this legend is the real inspiration for this movie. Weekend at Bernie's came when two guys, Robert Young and Mark Robinson, went over to their friend Jeffrey Jarrett's house to find that he had actually overdosed. However, Robert and Mark both thought he was just drunk, so they decided to take their drunken friend on a drinking tour around town. Since Jarrett didn't seem to be having any fun, the two decided to bring him home, and they kept his credit card so they could continue to party all night. It wasn't until the morning that they realized he was dead. They reported it, and the two were charged with identity theft and criminal impersonation and abuse of a corpse.
Yep.
Now, that is creepy. How did they not know he was dead?
They just thought he was really drunk. I mean, who's to say that you go to your friend's house and they're dead? You just think they're just really drunk.
So they're going to carry this guy around town from probably club to club, bar to bar, whatever, while they're having their whatever it is they're doing, and not notice that he never moves.
They happened. They got arrested for it.
And my daughter asked me this question because I read that one to her, and she's like, well, they would have had to knew, so I said, well, maybe they were just so stoned that they didn't notice he never moved.
Yeah.
I mean, that's okay. We'll just use this credit card. We'll buy some more booze. We'll just keep the party rolling. He'll wake up sooner or later. Uh, okay, now I can see uh, the theft of his whatever. But how did they charge them with impersonating somebody? I mean, how do you impersonate a dead guy?
By when they took their credit card afterwards. It's like identity theft.
Identity theft, yeah, but impersonate. Well, okay, yeah, okay. Now I realize it makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking, what are they gonna do? Go up to a place and pull out the credit card and start going like,
yeah.
I mean,
Something like that. Yeah, just using his card around saying they were him.
yeah. That's still a little bit out there. Okay, tell us about the collector.
Yep. The collector is an urban legend of a creepy neighbor who would collect human parts or remains for his own amusement. While this legend is actually true, the man behind the legend was Anatoly Moskovin, who was a local historian in Russia. He collected human corpses and dressed them in women's clothing and wigs, then placed them all over his apartment. He also covered their faces to make them featureless. So when police discovered his collection, they were shocked that he had collected 29 individual bodies before he was caught. So he had 29 bodies dressed up in women's clothing and wigs in his apartment.
Now I gotta ask, wouldn't these bodies kind of get a little bit ripe after a while?
You would think so. 29 is a big number.
Yeah, and you got 29 ripe people standing around in women's clothes with wigs on. How would you stay in there? The smell would have to be just like, ugh. Unless how would you get used to a smell like that, though?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
it's like that serial killer. I forget it. I can't. His name's on the tip of my tongue. He was killing everyone and putting them in barrels.
I remember something about that. Yeah.
In his house, you know what I mean. So in his house, he had all these barrels. I can't think of the name right now.
I remember something about that. Actually, they used that in a show that I watched one time where the guy was killing these people and putting them in barrels and sinking them in the river or something, or the lake or the something, or close to his house. But yeah, that was based on an actual story, I think. Okay.
Yeah, my tongue. I can't think of it.
The Funhouse Mummy. The legend says a prop at a carnival was discovered not to be made of the usual combination of paper mache, but of human skin and bone. The truth behind this legend is, back in 1976, a camera crew filming an episode of The $6 Million Man began to set up in the haunted house at an amusement park in Long Beach, California. As they were moving aside a hanging door prop, they accidentally knocked off its arm and discovered human bones inside. The body was that of criminal mastermind Elmer McCurdy, who was killed in a shootout after robbing a train in 1911. The princely sum old Elmer got killed for was $46 and 2 jugs of whiskey.
Can you imagine? Yeah.
McCurdy was embalmed by a local undertaker, and apparently the guy was so darn pleased with his work that he propped up the corpse in the funeral home as evidence of his skills. People were charged 5 cents to see the corpse, which they paid by dropping a nickel in the corpse's mouth. After several years of taking nickels, this undertaker scheme was ruined when McCurdy's brother showed up to claim him. From that point on, McCurdy's mummy went on morbid mystery tours all over America, popping up at carnivals all over the country before finally coming to rest in Long Beach, California. McCurdy is now buried in Oklahoma. Now, this guy robs a train for $46 and 2 jugs of whiskey. Winds up being on display in a funeral home, and then traveling to all the different carnivals and whatever, I saw something.
The same thing with the Corpse's Bride. The Corpse's Bride is the same thing. It's real life person inside of the mannequin,
Yeah. I've seen a show that was based on something like that too one time. It's funny how actually maybe I don't think that was a show. It might have been supposed to have been a documentary.
Okay.
Of an actual event, and I think that's who they were talking about.
Okay.
But it didn't tell the part about the funeral director, keeping him on display or whatever. It just talked about him going from like circuses and carnivals and all that, And
yeah, he was a real guy. Yep.
Yeah. But I don't think the people actually believed that it was a real mummy. They thought it was fake, but it was this creepy looking, and everybody paid to go see it. But I mean, it actually was a real human being.
Yep. They went to see him for a nickel. That's how far back it was.
Right.
They dropped a nickel in his mouth.
If they had something like that now, you wouldn't get by with a nickel. You might see it for $20, but yeah, it ain't gonna be a nickel, that's for sure. Okay, so you get to tell us about being buried alive.
All right, buried alive. This legend says that some poor person is committed to his or her eternal resting place, even though they're not quite ready to take their final dirt nap. Scratch marks are later found on the coffin lid, along with other desperate signs of escape. The truth to this legend is not only did this happen, but back in the day it happened with alarming regularity. 19th century, William Tubb tried to compile all his incidences of premature burial from medical sources. He managed to collect 219 cases of near premature burial, 149 cases of actual premature burial, and a dozen cases where embalming had begun on a not yet deceased body. So keep in mind, this was an era before doctors gained the ability to solve any ailment within 42 minutes. If you went to the doctor with the flu, in those days he would likely cover you in leeches and prescribe you heroin to suppress your cough. There's only methods for determining if a person had died was to lean over their face and scream, "Wake up," over and over again. And if you did not respond or react, they would bury you. So the concern, one being buried alive back then, was so real, they actually had safety coffins that allowed the inside to signal to the outside by ringing a bell or raising a flag if they were to wake up 6 feet under. And it happens more than people think. It happens a lot, getting buried alive.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
There was one guy so afraid of that he had a window put in his tomb.
Oh, yeah.
So that people could look in there to see if he was dead or alive. And also, that is where they got the back in the day when they used to do, they'd put your body out in your house.
Oh, yeah.
And they had like a 3-day wake. That was to give 3 days to see if the person was going to recover. Gotcha. And also, I think that is where the sitting up with the dead came from, because somebody had to watch over this person for 3 days, day and night, in case they moved or anything, where they could tell that they weren't actually dead. So yeah, that's a really interesting one right there. Very true. Lots of times people were buried dead. When they were still alive. In fact, there's cases where the Undertaker would start embalming somebody and they would come to.
Yep, that's just nuts. I mean, I couldn't even imagine going through that.
Well, and that's really creepy.
People wake up in the morgue.
Yeah,
I guess a lot.
but you know that the before the Undertaker starts putting the embalming fluid in there, they drain all the blood out. So if a person woke up, he'd be bloodless.
Yeah, I mean, how could you even be alive at that point?
I don't know, but I mean, that's just how it goes. The legend goes that it's true, you know, and we know that they was buried alive. So I remember my mother telling me about a woman that they actually had her in the hearse on the way to either on the way to the funeral home from the hospital or somewhere, and she sat up and woke up, you know. So yeah, I mean, really crazy stuff happens with people like that.
I mean, I'd rather wake up before I get buried versus being buried 6 feet under.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be buried first and then discover that I was awake.
Yeah,
okay.
Crazy.
The babysitter. The legend is a lonely babysitter is plagued by menacing phone calls throughout the night, only to discover that the phone calls are coming from inside the house. You remember that movie? There was a movie like that.
Yeah, there was a movie like that.
Yeah. This urban legend began in the 60s during a time of moral purity in the country. In actuality, the babysitter wasn't a babysitter at all, but in fact a pregnant, unwed teen, and the phone calls were not phone calls from an anonymous stalker, but calls from the neighbors pressuring her to move to Canada or some hippie country where hussies can roam free. Okay. Like I said, there was a movie about where these teenagers or whatever were in a house or something, and this guy was actually upstairs making these phone calls.
Yep.
In the house with him. But I could also see where, because back in the day, you know, that just wasn't something that people put up with. Okay, if a young girl got pregnant out of wedlock or something like that back then, they were usually shipped off to a boarding school somewhere far away, or you know, locked up in a asylum or something. You know, where nobody would ever know that, you know, they had a pregnant daughter.
Yep, exactly.
Now, I don't agree with teenage pregnancy. I think that's very foolish. But at the same time, you know, who could ship off their child like that? I mean, are you that much into the socialite scene that you don't want to be embarrassed because your daughter got pregnant out of wedlock? You know, that you would put your daughter in an asylum or something like that? You know,
well, rather back in the day, that's how it was.
I'm just saying, though. I mean, good God, what does that say about socialite or being a socialite? You know,
they put you in an asylum for many reasons, actually. Different reasons. They put you in an asylum.
Or because you didn't want to be embarrassed in front of your friends and neighbors or the town folk, whatever. That's just too much, you know. I mean, some things you really just don't want to know. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That actually happened. Okay. Poodle in the microwave.
Yeah, it's a little legend. It says that a woman put her poodle in the microwave to dry it off after a bath, and the poodle explodes. Well, believe it or not, this legend is actually true, but instead of drying her poodle, Frances Mayweather of Aurora, Illinois, was just hungry and decided to eat her dog. So I guess she put her dog in the microwave.
Uh.
I wonder how old she was.
I don't know. But,
yeah, she's got to be really old to do that.
Yeah, not exactly in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
That's, ooh. Okay. Spooky acts resulting in death. The legend involves a trained escape artist failing in his act that goes awry. The legend revolves around someone dying while an audience watches after thinking it's part of the act. Eventually, everyone is shocked to learn the performer has actually passed. The truth behind this legend is that it actually happens more than you think. In 1984, magician comedian Tommy Cooper had a heart attack while performing on a show. In October 1990, Brian Jewell died while performing a hanging stunt meant to entertain guests on a haunted hayride. 6 days later, Joseph Burris performed an act that involved him having to break free from a plastic coffin buried underground and covered in concrete. As spectators watched the concrete being poured into the hole, everyone noticed when the wet concrete level suddenly dropped 2 feet down, crushing the coffin, causing the coffin to be crushed. By the time they got him out, he was dead. In 2001, haunted hayride worker Caleb Reb, I can't, Rebh, how you pronounce that? Reb,
Yeah, an H gotta be silent probably.
died when he decided to take the place of a skeleton placed in a house on a tree. When he struggled with the rope, guests and fellow workers thought he was acting and left him alone until he suffocated. Now, that would be, when you're performing, and that's the thing about a lot of the acts that magicians and these people like Evil Knievel that do these stunts and stuff, some of the stuff that they do is so freaking crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that every time that they perform these stunts and everything, they're thinking, yep, this is probably going to be the one, This is going to be my farewell show or whatever, because they're that freaking scary.
Yeah.
I can see why people would pay to see them, you know what I mean? Because everybody wants to see somebody get ripped into a million pieces. Why? I don't know, because they're morbid like that. I wouldn't care to see that, but I don't know. It's just the fact that they're putting their life on the line to do these stunts, and everybody's like willing to pay to see it, because they think, well, maybe he's really going to die this time. That's a heck of a way to think about things. Ugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Kidney thieves.
Yeah, well, this is another black market legend. Everyone's heard of waking up in the bathtub filled of ice with a note telling them to go to the hospital if they want to live because their kidney was removed to sell on the black market. Well, the truth of this legend is that it happened in India in 1995. Law requires organ donors to come from closely related family members, creating a thriving black market for organs. Well, in 1998, 3 surgeons, 7 accomplices were arrested after being accused of tricking people into having their kidneys removed without permission. The criminals will tell the victims that they could get a job, but first had to undergo a medical exam. The exam would reveal the applicant needing a small surgery. During the procedure, the doctor would remove the kidney, and there the victim would hear nothing more about the job offer. So they go in thinking they're going to get a job, and they remove a kidney, and they didn't. It doesn't make any sense to me, because how can you not know something's being removed from your body?
Right. Well,
I guess it happened. People got arrested for it.
If you are put under anesthesia and you're knocked out, you're not going to know that they took it until you come to. And I'm assuming that they sewed you up and
Yeah.
all that. Well,
You go under, no one knows what's happening to you. Basically, you don't know what you're doing. You're under.
how would you know if they took a kidney or or whatever?
You wouldn't.
I mean, I wouldn't know what it would feel like to be missing a kidney, so I couldn't explain that. However, I think not being called about a job would be the last thing on my mind at the time. If I woke up like that, you got to figure they probably had a pretty good size cut,
Oh yeah.
all stitched up, and they're thinking of small surgery, and I've got a cut about 8 inches long across here, and I feel a little empty on one side. No. Anyways, okay. Self decapitation machine. The legend is about a guy who totally committed suicide by beheading himself with a complicated device that he saw on the news. The truth behind this legend is that it actually happened in Yorktown, Virginia. When police and fire responded, they were there to help a guy who was sitting in a car with a trailer attached. The trailer was on fire that was attached to the car, and the guy refused to get out of the car. That's when firefighter noticed the wire around the driver's neck, the wire that went out the back window and was tied to a tree 10 feet away. Before anyone could stop him, the driver stepped on the gas, the car zoomed forward, the wire snapped, the unnamed victim was whipped out of the rear window, and his head was removed. Flames were sky high in the air. The head and body were both left behind.
It's one way to go out, huh?
Yeah, if you wanted to commit suicide, most people leave a suicide note or something, saying, well, I can't deal with it anymore. My wife left me, or my dog shit on my toe, or there's always a reason.
Yeah.
If somebody went out of their way to set up a staged thing like that, okay, do you remember when the guy killed John Lennon? He was supposed to have been a fan.
Yeah.
Well, when they asked him why he did it, basically he said because John Lennon was famous and he would never be famous unless he killed a famous person.
Yeah.
So that was his way of getting to be famous. Okay, this guy obviously had he decided he was going to kill himself, but he figured he'd go out with a bang and get all kinds of attention, and it'd probably be wrote up in all the newspapers, and on the news and everything like that. Although you have to think, why would a person do that if they had family who was going to be watching this on the news and reading it in the newspapers and all of that stuff? Did he not think about what that would do to his family?
I don't think
cared about it.
Yeah, I don't think he cared.
He either just didn't have a heart, didn't give a damn, or he was so drugged out of his mind it probably never even entered his mind. I don't know. That I just couldn't see somebody actually doing something like that, to kill themselves, to put on a stage like that, I just couldn't picture how his family would react, Anyway. Okay. Going along here, the next thing on our list is there's something caught in my throat.
Yep. Well, this legend is of a father cleaning off his grill's metal cooking grate, and he just purchased a new wire brush. He thought the brush worked so well that after he did not need to wipe the grill with the cloth afterwards, and then cooked his food. The next day, his daughter was hungry and grabbed a burger. After taking a bite, she kept complaining or claiming that something was caught in her throat. After drinking water didn't help, she went to the hospital only to discover a piece of the wire brush was stuck in her esophagus, and the only way it could be removed is by surgery. Well, the truth behind this legend is it actually happened to a girl in 2000 in Texas and was treated at the Galveston Children's Hospital. It can happen. You clean the grill off with a wire brush, and it gets on. So you don't wipe it off afterwards, and the wires get stuck in the grate, which
gets in the meat. You don't know it's in there. And,
yep, you swallow it.
I mean, that same thing happens with fish bones and stuff like that. The little tiny fish bones.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
You might think you got them all out, but some of them are so tiny you don't really see them. And they can get stuck in your throat and stuff. That's sad. And to think that could have been prevented, a little safety measure.
Absolutely. Yep.
Next, we have, and we're running past an hour, but that's fine because these things are interesting. I love this stuff. Lend me a hand. This legend says one day at a festival, a tug-of-war contest was held and included 1,600 people. Man, that's a lot of people. The contest began and both teams of 800 people started pulling as hard as they could. Unfortunately, what they didn't realize was that the large nylon rope rated for less than half of the total force they were exerting on it. Suddenly, the center of the nylon rope snapped, and the thousands of kilos of force caused the rope to rebound and tear off the left arm of both the two men in the front of each group. The men were raced to the hospital where their arms were carefully reattached. The truth of this legend is that it actually occurred in Taipei. Taipei. In 1997, the force of the rope snapping injured Yang Chung and Chen Ming Ku. Their arms were reattached under surgery at McKay Memorial Hospital.
Basically, the amount of force that when the nylon snapped, it caused both their arms.
Right, and I've done tug of war before, and that thought would have never entered my mind. That what if this thing broke and you got? I mean, even if you had 16 people on each side, that's quite a bit of force.
Yeah, the way they have 800.
And if the rope broke, I could see it maybe whipping back and maybe taking somebody's head off.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're lucky it was just an arm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Ugh, creepy thought. Yes, indeed. The toxic woman.
Right, well, legend states a woman dying of cancer is brought into the emergency room. When nurses attempted to sample blood, toxic fumes escaped from the woman's blood. Within minutes, each of the nurses that handled the blood attempted to identify the strange odor and became lightheaded and began to lose consciousness. When they awoke, they were to find out that they had no control over their limbs. 23 members of the staff suffered from the toxic fumes. Well, the truth behind this legend is it actually took place on February 19 in 1994. The 31-year-old Gloria Ramirez was admitted to the General Hospital in Southern California, city of Riverside. I guess there was toxic fumes coming out of her blood, and it caused 23 members of the staff to lose control of their limbs.
Wow. You have to ask yourself, how would toxic fumes?
Must have to do with the cancer. She was dying of cancer.
Okay, but
Something made her toxic.
yeah, but
She was
there's
like,
many people that were eaten up with cancer that were taken into the hospital that didn't do that.
yeah. So what made her case special?
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
but it
What?
happened in California. So everything, anything. You got to think anything can happen. The strangest things
Yeah,
can.
that's the thing about. Like I said, that's the thing about some of these legends is the fact that not only are they true, but they're just like creepy, scary.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
what if something like that actually happened now?
Well,
You could
1994 isn't that far away.
happen to be in the hospital somewhere, and they could bring somebody in, and something like that happened.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I think our people in the chat room over there are enjoying this. I just popped over there and told them we're going to keep going for a while. The body in the carpet. Legend says 3 students discovered a rolled and discarded carpet on the sidewalk while returning to their dorms one day. They decided to bring it home with them to help decorate their shared space. When they reached the dorm, they unrolled the carpet to discover a murder victim concealed inside. The truth behind this legend is in 1984, 3 Columbia University students did discover a dead body in a rolled up carpet they found on the sidewalk. Now, I've seen lots of rolled up carpets on the sidewalk where people have done remodel jobs. And stuff. I used to do construction, so I see a lot of that stuff. Like
Yeah.
scrap lumber and rolled up pieces of carpet. Don't take none of it home with you, people. It might be something in there you don't want. Just saying.
Or at least unroll it first.
And how many of the horror movies have you seen where the guy kills his wife or whatever and rolls her up the carpet, and takes her off somewhere and dumps it in a gully or something like that?
Yeah.
It's always a piece of carpet. And I can tell you a true story. Uh, Actually, my landlord owned the house. This guy got into it with his girlfriend. He came back. He cut her throat. He rolled her up in a rug behind the couch and set the house on fire. True story.
Okay.
So, yeah, that stuff does happen. And creepy, creepy, creepy. And the guy wound up right down the road from me. When they finally arrested him, he was about 3 houses down from me. He had went to these people's house because he was kin to one of them and asked them to get him out of town, and they called the cops because they thought he was acting suspicious. And yeah, I think he got out of it though. I think he's actually working here somewhere in town now, is what I heard. But anyway, that stuff happens. So,
Yep.
Okay, corpse in the chimney.
Okay, well, this legend is a person gone missing, and their loved ones looked high and low for them, but the search proves fruitless until a smell begins to come out of the fireplace when they look and discover the body. Well, truth behind this legend is a 49-year-old woman was trying to get in the house of her on and off again boyfriend. Instead of using the front door, she climbed up on the roof and descended down the chimney. Halfway down, she got stuck, and with her boyfriend being away, no one could hear her screaming from the house. So I don't suggest going down your chimney.
Right. I mean, only Santa Claus does that, right? He's got the magic,
Yeah. But it's just the fact that the dirty ones, they try to climb down your chimney to get in the house. I mean, you never know.
That's true. It would have had to have been a pretty good sized chimney, though, for her to even get in there. Most of your chimneys ain't that big.
Yeah, or not straight to where she got stuck halfway down, obviously.
Right.
They just probably smaller and smaller.
Well, now, I happen to know how fireplaces are built. I used to work with a bricklayer that built fireplaces, and when you build your framework, you have a metal piece that goes in there, which is
Okay.
your damper. That you can turn it down to hold more heat in there or whatever, and that thing blocks the opening. There's no way if a person even got down that far, they couldn't get through. So they
Okay.
would
Well,
be
I don't.
they'd be stuck in there anyway.
Yeah, it's not good because you can't go back up once you get down halfway.
Right. I mean, if they weren't stuck, they might be able to pull their way back up. I don't know, but if they couldn't, though, I mean, because I would assume it's, well, no, not really. I don't know. Anyway, I wouldn't want to do that. Okay. Decapitated by an elevator. Legend says getting your head chopped off by a faulty elevator. Truth of this legend is yes, not only did it happen, but happened several times. In 2003, a Houston decapitated by a hospital elevator. A Houston person, I think it's supposed to be. Decapitated by a hospital elevator. Recently, a 20-year-old Russian woman lost her head as her son watched in horror.
I don't see how you can get in an elevator and get your head chopped off. I mean, unless I don't see it happening, but I guess it happens a lot.
Well, how? Because I'm thinking I've been in several elevators, and you get in there and the door's shut, and they don't open until you reach your landing. So how would you get in a position to get your head chopped off? Okay. The only thing that I could possibly see is maybe the doors open and they went to step out or something, and the elevator took off or something.
Yeah. I can see your arm getting stuck out of the elevator because it closed on you, but I don't see how your head can get stuck.
Well, yeah, the door. Those doors operate on a sensor, I think, and if anything is in between there, they don't shut.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
If the doors malfunction, I could see maybe the doors shutting and pinching somebody's arm off or something like that. Or maybe even if they stuck their head out to look or something, and the doors closed on it, it could happen. But I'm thinking that this is more along the lines of the elevator itself going up and somebody's head getting chopped off, like, between floors or something. And I don't see how that could happen. Obviously it does. I just don't see how.
Yeah, it does happen. I don't see how either.
Unless you're in a horror movie, now it could happen, in a horror movie. And like that guy said, don't ever say you'll be right back, because you won't.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I lost where I was here.
Well, next is the things that squirm in your skull.
Yeah.
People from well-off northern countries sure do like a jet down to various tropical countries for a little sun and fun. But we also tend to get a bit weirded out by the third world conditions that often exist right outside the walls of our destination. These fairs have given rise to all sorts of tales of people returning from trips near the equator with a free souvenir wiggling around inside basically their brain. But the truth is, shortly after returning, this lady was coming back from Britain from a vacation in Peru, Rachel Harris, began to hear scratching noises inside her head. Apparently, Harris didn't think much of worrying about it, and it got louder and louder, and things were getting worse, so I guess she went to the doctor. She started getting headaches, radiating pains down one side of her face, and she waked up with fluid on her pillow. So basically, she went to the doctors, and basically they found a maggot that had set a home inside her ear canal. Basically, that's what happened. she had a maggot that was inside her ear canal, and it caused all sorts of problems. So, you got to be careful when you go to these places, laying down on the ground or whatnot. Something obviously got in her ear, made home in it, and
It said something about a fly coming out of her ear.
yeah, basically, the fly flew out of her ear. When she woke up with the fluids on her pillow, a fly flew out of her ear. And after the fly incident, she went to the doctors to find out there's a maggot there.
Ew.
Yeah, you gotta be careful when you go on vacation, lay on the ground and stuff, especially if you're not aware where you are or if it's third world country. Absolutely.
You guys over there listening in the chat room and wherever, if you ever go to Peru, don't put your ear to the ground to listen for sound of animals or something like that. You might come back with something.
Nope. Exactly. It happened.
Okay. Don't drink the water. We tend to be really trusting of what comes out of the shower head or kitchen faucet. The people in charge wouldn't let water make it as far as our homes if it had not been treated and filtered to the point of near sterility. Even if you have an open cut on your hand, you don't hesitate to stick that shit right under the tap. After all, what's the worst thing that could be in the water? Well, the truth of this legend is guests at the Hotel Cecil in downtown Los Angeles were having trouble with their water. There was weak pressure, it smelled and tasted funny, and it wasn't just coming out brown, it was coming out black as death. You could say, unfortunately, the residents of the Cecil didn't heed Homer Simpson's immortal wisdom, if it's brown, drink it down, if it's black, send it back, and just kept bathing in and drinking the hotel's rank water for nearly a week. We thought it was just the way the water was here, guest Serena Ball told a reporter. Finally, one of the Cecil's bizarrely reluctant to complain residents mentioned something about the water, and a maintenance worker was sent to check things out. He made a stomach-churning discovery. In one of the hotel's 4 large cisterns, he found the decomposed and liquefying body of a young woman. She had somehow fallen into the tank, turning the hotel's water into a corpse consomme. The guests of the Cecil had been drinking down for weeks. The body was that of Canadian student Elsa Lam, and it remains a mystery how she ended up in the Cecil's water supply. Was it suicide, an accident, or something more sinister? CCTV footage from Lamb's last night alive show her acting in a furtive, agitated fashion, almost as if she was afraid she was being followed, and a guest staying below Lamb reported hearing a tremendous racket from above the night she died. Or maybe it was dark forces within the hotel itself that did Lamb in. The Cecil's history is so dark it makes the Overlook Hotel look like a TripAdvisor top pick. The Cecil has been the scene of numerous murders and suicides, and not one but 2 serial killers have stayed there. But hey, on the other hand, it only costs $65 a night. Just, not to bring your own water.
Lisa Lamb, you can go on YouTube, and that's the leader who ended up in the water tank, and that's what they're talking about there.
Could you imagine?
I don't know why you would want to drink and bathe in black water.
Right.
Anyone could think that that's normal, but if you look at that YouTube video, something's not right with her, and something happens to her, but no one knows what it is. It's still a mystery. No one knows how she ended up in that water tank. But it's pretty scary when you watch that video and see her reacting to things and how she was reacting. And that, so go on YouTube. Lisa Lamb, check it out.
How could anybody, and like you said though, if you poured a glass of water and it looked black, how would you want to drink that? I mean,
I don't know. People have been really out there, they really think that that's how it was.
You know,
Where they were, which doesn't.
and how could you think about getting in a shower or a bathtub full of black, nasty, slimy water?
Exactly, it smells. It just doesn't make any sense. But that's what happened. I mean, it's a true story.
Well, I mean, if even if it's a true story, I couldn't see how anybody could drink, especially if they tasted it once and it tasted nasty and slimy. Why would they continue to drink it? Um,
Yeah.
you know, and if you got in a tub of water like that, you might as well, not take a bath because you're going to be even nastier when you get out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it don't make sense how anybody could put themselves in a position like that, knowing that, well, I'm getting in here to get clean, but this water is nasty. So how am I going to get clean by getting in this water? It don't make a lot of sense. Okay, on to the next. Okay, we have compacted.
Yeah. Most urban legends are cautionary tales of one kind or another, and senses no group in need of a little caution more than teenagers. A lot of legends are of a teenager did a stupid thing and died horribly for it. There are plenty of stories about garbage trucks. And basically, what happened, the truck crushed um, someone inside. Basically, there are plenty of stories about garbage trucks because, come on, those things are freaky. And they're giant metal crush machines driven by guys who look like hobos. Of course, kids tell stories about them. So this is actually a true story where the garbage truck. Well, it's a true story about a teenager from Luxembourg decided he was going to spend his morning hiding in a garbage can. And what happened is the garbage truck came, picked up the claws of the garbage container where this kid was hiding, and flipped it in the truck and hit the big red crush button. Well, when the screaming and sounding of snapping bones began, there was nothing to be done. There was no way to stop the truck's crushing mechanism once it started. The garbage men were forced to stand by in horror as the truck compacted a kid to death. This wasn't the only time a teenager met his end in a garbage truck. A mere month before the incident in Luxembourg, a kid from Long Island was crushed to death in a recycling truck. So basically, I would never hide in garbage cans. And if I was getting picked up by one, I'd sure as hell jump out of it before I got into the garbage truck. Because once they hit that button, there's no going back. You're getting crushed in that. So I suggest any teenagers listening that they stay away from hiding in garbage cans.
True.
But it did happen.
And if mom and dad tells you take the trash out to the garbage truck,
Yeah, I mean, just playing around, hide and seek, I mean, it happens.
Okay. A gruesome discovery. Urban legends about burglars getting theirs are common. They're willing to throw other people's lives into disarray because earning things the honest way seems like hard and stuff. But what if a burglar broke into the wrong house? A house containing something so startling that he ends up calling the police himself. The truth is, in the wee hours of the morning, a New Zealand man broke into what he thought was a vacant house. An easy job. Turned out the house wasn't so vacant after all. As our criminal made his way around the dimly lit hallways looking for treasure, he noticed something hanging in the dark. The neighbors were soon awakened by the burglar's screams. The would-be thief had stumbled across a man who had hanged himself only hours before. The thief was so freaked out that he completely broke from the burglar's handbook, tore out of the house like a madman and called the police himself. The police had surprisingly upbeat take on the whole situation and said, hopefully there will be a positive out of it and that the burglar will decide it's not the thing to do. I would be taking that as pretty bad karma. You know, that, yeah, I mean, I could just see if you broke into a house and found somebody hanging. You know, first off, if you thought he was alive, you might take a chance of cutting him down. But you know,
Yeah, well, he's breaking into the house, and all of a sudden he sees something like that and it freaked him out. He ended up calling police.
yeah. Anyway, that's
It can happen.
yeah, I suppose it'd still be freaky. I wouldn't want to be that burglar anyway.
I can't believe it's 9:30 already. This next one, can we make the last one?
That's fine. I mean, whenever you get tired, just let me know.
Yeah, let's make this one the last one because I got to get going, take care of some things. But this one is the chef who slow cooked his wife. Basically, what really goes on in restaurant kitchens, we've all cringed at tales of people finding various gag-inducing items and fluids in their foods or kitchens, just to watch an episode of Kitchen Nightmares to see how justified a lot of those fears are. But what about the ultimate restaurant urban legend? What about the killer chef who used his kitchen to make his dirty deeds go away? Well, truth to this legend is David Viens murdered his wife, Dawn. Basically, the argument was over drugs and money, and somehow Dawn ended up dead. What was remarkable was that the very top chef, David, a cook at a contemporary cafe, did away with Dawn's body. David took Dawn's body to his restaurant, stuffed her head inside an industrial-sized slow cooker, and while there's no nice way to put this, he basically turned her into a pot of pulled human. Here's David's description of the process. I took some things, like weights that we use, and I put them on top of her body, and I just slowly cooked it and ended up cooking her for 4 days. I cooked her 4 days, I let her cool, I strained it out. So basically, David Viens hadn't been caught. The old ladies who eat at the Thyme Contemporary Cafe might have been slurping down some soup made in a slow cooker somebody was boiled in. But think about the next time you go order some gumbo. It happens, he stuck her in a slow cooker and he cooked his wife. But he got caught for it. He did get caught.
Good. Oh, just think about it. Next time you go to a restaurant, you might be eating a rib of somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you never know.
Okay, folks. Miss Haunted Salem has to run, so we're going to bring this thing to a close. Thank you so much for coming. I enjoyed doing this. I love legends and stuff like that. Too bad we didn't
I appreciate you having me on again. I really do. That was fun.
I would have loved to have done Mothman and Jersey Devil and all that stuff too. But these were pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's been nice, and we're going to have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely. I'd love to. So anytime you let me know, and we'll do a show on something interesting.
Awesome. Okay. All my lovely people in the chat room, we appreciate you. Everybody listening in, we appreciate you. We will be back Wednesday night with another ghostly story episode with William Wallace and myself. Until then, farewell and adieu. Parting is such sweet sorrow. Good night, everybody.
Good night.